Thank you very much. And this talk is about social mobility, which is a bit different from occupational mobility because social mobility is concerned with class origins, families, and then we are looking at what the relationship between the origin and the education and destination has been and what changes there are over time. Actually, last month, we had a paper. I'm doing this with my colleague Fiona Devine. Some of you might know her. And we are both sociologists. And last month we had a paper published, and we are doing more work in this area. And then, so the aim of this presentation is to explore the patterns of intergenerational educational and class mobility in Britain between the two time points, 1991 and 2005. I'll explain why we use this. And to assess the extent of class difference in two areas and the direction of change, and to bridge the difference between academic and the political understanding of mobility. We are academics, and I believe that many of you are also academics. But before we came here, and Fiona and I, we had a discussion, we were very much sort of worried, what can we say to the group of policy makers, and then so we need to think of some how to bridge the two camps, and then we'll try to see where the government or the employers or the society at large could do better to improve social equality and social inclusion. This is also something that we are concerned. And then our overall concern is about a fair society and fair, vibrant society, which is the lifeblood of democracy and of shared future, which there is no disagreement. But what is a fair society? There is much disagreement. And a fair society to us is a society which has equal life chances, which means equal life opportunities and equal life conditions, regardless of family origin, gender, ethnicity, disability, all these things. But as we all know, that this kind of fair society has never existed in human society, in class society anyway. But the thing is that we know it doesn't exist, but this is the idea. And then how far away we are from that idea. Are we moving closer to that idea, and what can we do to make the society better? That's our point. And then, sociologists talk about meritocracy, which was the phrase coined by Michael Young in 1958. I'm sure many of you know this. But what is the changing story? So basically, it is very simple. It is origin, education, and destination. But sociologists, especially American liberal theorists, they argue that in the good society, in a fair society, the link between origin and education will decrease, the strengths will decrease. It means that over time, what your parents do will not affect your education as much as in the past. So this is based story. And then the same is concerned with origin and destination. The link will decline, but education and destination, that link is supposed to strengthen. It is that what you do will increasingly depend on what kind of education. And we have heard of Bob talking about this is not exactly true, and there are differences there. So we're going to see. And then family, to sociologists, family plays a very important role, and actually the most important role, more important than ecological factors, according to a lot of research. And then what can we do about the OE link, and what can we do about the ED link, and then the OD link it is. And there are a lot of debates about social mobility, and then academics, especially sociologists, talk about relative mobility and the absolute mobility, and economists don't talk so much about the absolute mobility, and policy makers and the media, the general public, usually when they talk a lot about mobility, and they say that in this country we are having a mobility crisis, many people are worried. When the public talk about this, what they have in mind is very much different from what sociologists have in mind. When they talk about this, they mean the upward mobility, especially mobility of the young kids from poor backgrounds. They are not talking about downward mobility, of the mobility from middle class backgrounds doing bad jobs. So there is difference here. Okay, but we're trying to show that it is almost not possible in a democratic society to force downward mobility, right? It's almost not possible. I'm from China, as you can see, and in China we had the Cultural Revolution, and during the Cultural Revolution, our great leader Chairman Mao sort of forced the so-called educated people in the cities to go to the countryside and so-called to learn from the peasants. And then in here, you don't have a peasants anyway to learn. And then it's not possible. So we can not force downward mobility very much. But still, within this context, can we increase relative social mobility? That's the thing. And there are three theses that are under debate. And one is the constant social fluidity, and it means that relative mobility remains constant. And the basic idea is very simple. It is that mobility is just like people standing on escalators. Some people are standing here, some people are standing here. That's, let's say, in 1950, and in 1970, in 1980 now, and then those people who are standing, they are always up. So the relative distance here doesn't change. This theory and this evidence has been produced by John Gerthrop, who is in Nuffield College, Oxford University, and he is the best researcher in mobility, and he has his colleagues done a lot of work on this. And then there is a thesis called declining social mobility, and the economists, Joe Blandon, Paul Gregg, and many others, they are doing this. But there is a difference. They use the same data as Craig has used, the NECD, the BCS, and then because they are economists, they use the economic approach, which is to use family income. And then how do they use family income? They use the quartile approach. When you use quintile approach, you relativize your approach, your class differences. So you can't differentiate between the absolute and the relative mobility. And the third thesis is that is something by us, my colleague Anthony Heath, Fiona Devine, and Paul. We believe that there are a lot of social differences in society, but if we do very serious and rigorous analysis, there are some signs of hope, signs of progress being made. This means two things. One is that we can make an effect. So as Obama said, yes, we can. Second is that there are still a lot of social differences, so we must work harder. So this is our thing. And then I'll talk about this, and then we'll talk about data. In this study, I used the BHPS and then the General Household Survey. The reason for this is that these two data sets have the best measures for social class. We use the NSS-EC, not the 7-class schema, but the 35-class schema. And then the 35-class schema, we can code class in all the directly driven ways. For instance, to code class 3B, that the lower grade routine managers, to put these people together as class 7, the routine workers. And we can do this for fathers, for mothers, for respondents. And we can code the dominance class approach, which simply means that over time, in the country, there are many people, many families where the mothers have better jobs than fathers. Therefore, we need to take this into account. And as sociologists usually, including Gerthrop's analysis, they don't do this because their data doesn't allow them to do this. But now we can do this. So these are the three links. And then in the real paper, it is much more complicated than this. But for the presentation, I use very simple stuff. And then this is the OE link, origin and education. And then we see that for men in 1991, those people from higher celerity is professional and managerial. And then if, for instance, people are from higher professional families or higher managerial families, almost 70% have tertiary education. And I said, well, this is the simplified version. And if you wish to see the full details, I have the full tables there. And only 10% have only primary. And this is for age 25 to 65 for men and 25 to 60 for women, 63. Why this? Because the GHS only collected data for this age group. Therefore, we have to cut some people from the BHPS to ensure consistency. And then for those from routine, that means unskilled manual worker families, only 18% have the tertiary education. We see a difference of 50 percentage points. And then now, we're in 2005, the difference between the two ends have decreased to 43 from 64 to 21. So this is OE for men, and then we can do it for women, and then we see the 61 to 13, and then we can also see the difference in terms of the primary education. And then the women in 2005, and then this is the summary, the difference in terms between the top and the bottom, and then in terms of the tertiary education, we see there is some decline. And we can do this for the OD link, and then we can see that those from the higher celerity, 70% were themselves in the celerity, means routine, means professional managerial positions. 11% were in the working class positions. This compared with 23% from the routine families in the celerity, and then 39 in the working class positions. And then 14 years later, this is the percentage 68 to 31 and 14 to 37. And this is then for women, we can see that there is a 41 percentage points in class difference in gaining access to the celerity. And then this is 2005, and then the percentage point difference, class difference have declined a tiny bit. So this is the summary. We can also see some signs of hope. And then this is the ED link. And then we all know that those people who get high degrees, first degree or master's or PhDs, they tend to find themselves in good jobs, in salaried jobs. And only 2% are in the working class in 1991 for men. And then for those people who don't have qualifications, it's unlikely. Only 9% who find themselves in salaried jobs, and 51% are in the working class. And no one would argue very much about this. But what is the trend? The trend is, surprisingly, those people who have degrees are less likely, as compared with around 15 years ago, to find themselves in good jobs. And this goes directly contrary to the American expectations, right? They believe that the education is going to be increasingly important, more and more important. But this is fair, common sense. A lot of research in Britain, and including my own research, shows that education is becoming less important. The reason is why? The reason is that 20 years ago or 30 years ago, if you graduate with a PhD, everyone is trying to grab you, right? Now, PhDs find it very hard to find a job, right? So education at the absolute level is losing its importance. It's the different kind of education and qualifications, as Bob said. And then this then is for women, 84% versus 8%. And then in in 2005 also declining importance. So this is this. And then now sociologists will not only look at the absolute mobility, we look at the relative mobility. What is relative mobility? Relative mobility looks at the net association between the origin and destination. This means that if in a society there is equal opportunity, equal condition, one's parents will have no effect upon your education or upon your class. Therefore, the odds ratio in a technical sense is 1. When the odds ratio is 1, the log of the odds ratio equals 0. I'm sure you know all this, right? Therefore, any increase in log odds above 0 means more unequal society. Any decrease means more equal society. So it is the log of odds, and technically we call it log-linear modeling, or the log multiplicative layers effects model, or unit of difference, these technical terms. But once we have done that, what we find is here. And then for men, the OE, the strength of the OE link has declined by a factor of 4%. And then I put that in bold, means significant. And then the OD link has also declined by a factor of 2.3%, which is also significant. The ED link, interestingly, has declined but is not significant. That means that we can't say too much. It could be happenstance. And then the same for women, but the degree of the decline is at a lesser magnitude as compared with men. So this is the story. The story is that there are signs. First of all, there are huge differences between class origins and people's educational and occupational attainment. Secondly, if we do very strict analysis, we can find some hope, and we can't lose hope. There is always some hope there, and then this means that we can make greater efforts to achieve greater results. So this is the thing that, and then this is a global test. It means that overall is the strength of the linkage between parents and education and destination is that declining. But we need to say where it is declining, for which social class is declining, in which aspect of education and occupation it is declining, so that we can make greater and more targeted efforts. So this is what is done. The tables are very complicated. I wouldn't put that because it's not possible to put in slides. And then for the OE, for men, it is class 2 to 4. So it is not class 1, it is class 2. And then why class 2? Because class 2 are lower grade professionals and managers. And many people are saying that lower grade professionals are no longer professionals. They are still, and especially lower grade managers. And many people, if you go to the B&B, and you'll find that many people are core managers, right? And if we go to the train, I take the train almost every day, and many people, the train conductors, are given the title of managers. And some sociologists call this cosmetic. So to make them happy, but it is not real. There is not much real meaning attached to these jobs, and there is a lot of debate whether this is real or cosmetic. And then for the OD, it is class 2 again, and for the ED, it's the degree holders, not the other ranks within the educational system. If you have a degree, and then you compare over the changes in the last 20 years, the degree holders are not having as much a chance as in the past. And then we can put OED all together. We can find it is 1 and 2 and degree holders, but this is not significant. For women, basically same story. Now, this is an example of what can we do as employers, as society, as policymakers, to make social mobility better, or to make society more equal. Do you want me to stop?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
A couple of minutes.
Okay, good. On the left-hand side, this is just a simple example, father's class, and then education. And then we can see, okay, if, for instance, if you are from high salaried origins, you have 41% of a chance of getting a degree, and 27% of a chance of getting a sub-degree. You have 6% of a chance of having no degree. This is for those people from higher salary backgrounds. But what if your father is or mother is highest, whoever they are, class, is a routine? For instance, if my father is a cleaner or is a sewage worker, and then what chance do I have for getting a degree or above? 2%. And then if you compare the 41% with the 2%, you see what? It is 20 times as high, right? And then you can also see the opposite side of getting no degree. And it is, how many? It is 6, 7 times. That's called disparity ratios. If you compare the disparity ratios times the disparity ratios together, becomes odds ratio. When you put all the odds ratios together, it is the strength of association that exists in society between the origin and destination in terms of education or education. And then if we compare the total sets of odds ratios over time, it is what I showed you earlier, the declining strengths or the increasing strengths. Now, as I said, it is very hard to force these middle class families to increase their downward mobility. It is also not moral, right? In society, we can't do that. And society has its own functioning, the own way of functioning. Middle class parents, working class parents, every parent, they would try their best to help their children. That can be taken for granted. So what can we do if middle class parents do this? Of course, they should do this, and they have the resources to do this. What the government can do, what the employers can do, what society can do, is to try to help the poor families, the working class families, the routine families to increase this. And this is what happened. And then, of course, we know that in 1992, there is an increase in the number of universities. Many polytechs became universities. Now there are more chances. And Tony Blair was trying to get 50% of the young people, the cohort, into universities. And at the aggregate level, more people went to universities. And then the percentage for the higher salaried origins increased to 55%, and then routine increased to 11%. So we can see, okay, yeah, this is what is happening. Now, assuming that in 15 years' time, it is not 11% from the routine, it is 40%. And then leaving the higher salaried, their children's percentages unchanged, but steadily we increase the percentage, the uptake of those least advantaged. What will happen in society? That means that this part is constant, this part is increasing. So we have an unbalanced kind of mobility, the upward and downward, and gradually will increase social equality. So that's it. This is just to show off a bit. This is a technical, very technical, but it's. And then there is a sad story for a rat story for a sad story. Rat means rational action theory, and SAT means social advantages and disadvantages. This is by John Gerthrop and Colin Mears in Oxford. And then we generally agree with their opinions, but we are a tiny bit more hopeful and optimistic, but depends on our efforts.
Thank you very much.